I'm here with Alexander Mercouris and Alex Christoforou. Welcome, gentlemen.
Delighted to be here.
And so I just want to remind people that after the 2016 election, everybody in America who voted for Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen. And here's Keith Olbermann. Here's one of the, this is one typical example of how unhinged and crazy the people who voted for Hillary Clinton were.
This brave rebel here.
This brave rebel. Here we go.
We are at war with Russia. Or perhaps more correctly, we have lost a war with Russia without a battle. We are no longer a sovereign nation. We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a free people. We are the victims of a bloodless coup. So far, a bloodless coup.
A coup.
Engineered by Russia, which if we did it to another country would be described as an act of war. And in this country, we have conceded defeat. The nation and all of our freedoms hang by a thread, and the military apparatus of this country is about to be handed over to scum who are beholden to scum, Russian scum. As things are today, January 20th will not be an inauguration, but rather the end of the United States as an independent country. It will not be a peaceful change of power. It will be a usurpation, and the usurper has no validity, no credibility, and no authority under the Constitution. He is not a president. He is a puppet put in power by Vladimir Putin. And those who ignore these elemental existential facts, Democrats or Republicans, are traitors to this country.
So if you don't think that the 2016 election was stolen by Russia, according to Keith Olbermann, you are a traitor to this country. And everybody thought like him. You know who else thought like him? Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, this is in the Washington Post. Trump is an illegitimate president. Hillary Clinton dismissed President Trump as an illegitimate president and suggested that he knows that he stole the 2016 presidential election in a CBS News interview to be aired on Sunday. That's in the Jeff Bezos Democracy Dies in Darkness Washington Post.
Stop the steal?
I'm not making it up. There she is saying her version of Stop the Steal and Keith Olbermann's version of Stop the Steal.
Wouldn't that video, Keith Olbermann, be great in that old Apple 1984 commercial with the chick with the hammer and just have Keith Olbermann?
Yes. So why do I show you that? Because everyone is now pretending that they didn't do that for 5 straight years. Everyone is now pretending that if you disagree with the 2020 election, you are now a traitor. But if you disagree with the 2016 election outcome, you're a patriot. It's the weirdest thing. And they pretend that people who disagree with the 2020 outcome of the election are somehow now the biggest threat ever to democracy. To democracy. As if we live in a democracy. This is the most amazing thing. I haven't seen something this crazy ever. And here it is. And everyone, well, we'll see. Here, I'm going to show you. First of all, this is good optic. Did you want to look like Lenin? What are you doing? That's what they're doing. Okay, why? Hey, let's get red. Let's get red. It's the color of blood, steak, anger, and hate. Let's get red.
Marilyn Manson had basically this set up on tour back in like the 90s.
Yeah.
It was all red and
it's the color of murder. Here we go.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal.
You mean that we have a demented president and everyone's pretending he's not? Is that what you mean by not normal? Because that's what I think you mean.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
So I don't know what the point of this speech is, but that's what it is. That's the whole thing is he knows that he might have to run against Donald Trump. And so he and the rest of the establishment who hate Donald Trump, by the way, they hate Bernie Sanders more than they hate Donald Trump. So you see the shit he's saying about Donald Trump? If Bernie Sanders was a threat, they would be saying this about Bernie Sanders. But Bernie Sanders is a good boy who got his mind right and now goes along with the military-industrial complex and demented Joe Biden, and he's their biggest water boy. But if he wasn't, they'd be saying this about him. Anybody who's outside the system, who doesn't come up through the one-party duopoly, they don't like, and they got to make you say that they're the ones who are a threat to democracy. That's what this is. Okay, now I'll watch. I'll stop stopping it, and we'll watch a lot.
I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans.
So this is his version of deplorables. Remember when Hillary Clinton said half of them are deplorables? Remember how that turned out for her in the election? He's doing the same thing. So this is what he thinks. He's like, oh, well, not all Republicans, just the ones that are going to vote against me. Not all of them, but if you vote for Donald Trump, that's you. That's what he's doing. So this is him pretending to care about democracy, pretending to care about the country. What he's really is really caring about is that Donald Trump will beat him if he gets to run against him again. That's what this is about.
Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans.
To screw over the American workers time and time again, and I'm prepared to do it for 2 more years if they would just let me.
But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things. But I'm an American president, not a president of red America or blue America, but of all America.
So now he's just saying shit. Mm-hmm. So now he's just saying shit. That's all he's doing. Because Barack Obama said it in 2004, and everybody cheered. So now every dumb motherfucker says the same thing.
Oh, right.
Well, there are no red, blue America. There's no blue. There's only one United States. No.
And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful.
So there's just some straight stand-up comedy in this too, and I appreciate that. So that's really funny.
And here,
he said,
my view is what is true.
Here's what's true.
MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution.
Oh, they're disrespectful.
They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people.
Ah!
They refuse to accept the results of a free election.
Ah! You talking about Keith Olbermann and Hillary Clinton? Or who? I'm sorry. Oh, the wrong election? Okay.
And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies.
You mean like how the Democrats and the Republicans are joining forces to keep third-party people off the ballot, like they always do every year? You mean like that?
Empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself.
Election deniers like Hillary Clinton?
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards. Backwards.
But I'm telling you, we're already doing it.
America.
Arrests for marijuana are already skyrocketing under my administration.
Where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country.
Yes, the soul.
They look at the mob.
I'm sorry if you don't know this. The country has no fucking soul. We've been slaughtering the shit out of black and brown people and stealing their fucking resources for the last 50 fucking years. And we've been doing it at the tip of a gun and slaughtering millions of people. Joe Biden dropped more bombs than George Bush. These people are homicidal fucking bloodthirsty maniacs. And don't you ever fucking forget it.
Stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots, and they see their MAGA fit.
A bunch of yahoos, unarmed, who were pushed who were agitated to go in by FBI plants in the
we
crowd.
never should have opened the doors for him and guided him into the building. Now looking back.
And then the other cops who opened the gates, who took selfies with them in the rotunda. And those guys, that's what undermined democracy. If you think that's what undermined democracy, you are an ingester of propaganda. Because your democracy was stolen from you decades ago. It's been proven academically by the Cambridge study that said we have no democracy. Zero. That the only times the lever of government moves is when the upper 10% of wage earners in this country want it to move. The rest of us, no influence on our government whatsoever. Your democracy is pretend. Your leaders are chosen by Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, and Big Pharma. That's who chooses who we get to vote for. Right? That's how they got rid of Bernie Sanders. They got Pete Buttigieg. Everybody dropped out so we could go to the Wall Street's number one toady, which is Joe Biden. You know who their first choice was? Kamala Harris, except she couldn't get a vote. That she was chosen on Martha's Vineyard by Wall Street. She couldn't get a vote. Their next second biggest corrupt piece of shit is Joe Biden. That's why he's your president, not because of fucking democracy.
To stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections.
So this is all that they have, because Joe Biden and the Democrats and the Republicans are not going to do a goddamn thing to make your life better materially. They're not going to give you a living wage. They're not going to end the wars overseas and invest that money back home. They're not going to end homelessness. They're not going to give you student debt relief. They're not going to make marijuana illegal. They're not going to end the prison industrial complex. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to give you health care that doesn't bankrupt you. And so what are they going to do? They're going to make you hate half the fucking country. And you already do. And that's all that they got. And that's all this is.
Yeah, but now, while I look at that background color, I hate him even more.
Let me bring in my guest, the host of the Duran. I have more of this I'm going to play, but I just want to bring you in.
Is it just that? There's nothing else after about like how I can identify these MAGA Republicans and bring them into justice?
No. So let me bring in the host of the Duran. And Alexander, go ahead. Give me your response to this so far.
Well, I find it utterly deranged and completely disturbing and frankly a bit frightening, actually, all those things together. I mean, it is a speech that I never expected an American president ever to make about half the people of his own country. I mean, and nothing more divisive, nothing more incendiary than this. And of course, it's very sinister because, of course, if you're talking about an enemy within who is so dangerous, then of course you're opening the possibilities for taking the most extreme measures to suppress, defeat this enemy within, which is supposed to be such a terrifying challenge to the Constitution and the democracy, which, as you said, is one has to wonder what kind of a democracy you have. I can just make one point. 2016, the Democrats disputed the results of that election. They went about disputing it let's not just say the Democrats, the political class disputed the result of the 2016 election in a much more powerful, concerted way than this chaotic, muddled, ineffective way in which the 2020 election was disputed. You had the Justice Department, you had the Mueller investigation, you had the media, you had endless talk shows, endless propaganda, relentless talk about Putin having, controlled everything, about Trump having colluded with Putin, you had people arrested, you had people charged, you had people investigated. This is at a completely different scale. And the people who are now talking about the threat to democracy are the same people who were doing all of those things after the 2016 election. things which I found at the time extremely disturbing indeed. And from the way that this speech sounds, they're prepared to do that kind of thing again, only this time with even more redoubled force. And of course, they control the executive in order to do it.
Jimmy, are you guys at least impressed with how great of a job he did delivering this speech? I mean, he really came to life talking about this stuff. I haven't seen him this coherent. Usually he's all looking around for the ice cream truck.
I haven't seen him that coherent since he took a shower with his teenage daughter. Maybe she was younger. I don't know. But here, let's go to more of this.
They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people. This time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like federal...
Is there a big scare that somehow Trump voters are going to somehow overturn an election or something? What in the fuck? This is the craziest shit. They're going to overturn... What are you talking about?
Yeah, if they win in 2024, they're overturning the election of 2020.
Let's go a little bit more.
Court Judge Michael Ludwig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy. But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats.
He's just talking. He's acting like there's some kind of military force inside the United States running around killing people and overthrowing polling places. It is the craziest thing I've ever. There was a bunch of fucking yahoos that went to the goddamn Capitol on January 6th. They got let in, and they took selfies with the cops, and they went home. The only person who got shot was a goddamn protester.
Also, some guys died from Adderall overdoses.
That's right. This is all they have. This is mental. Alex, let me bring you in. What is your reaction to this?
I think this is pretty much in line with what we've been talking about at the Duran for a while now, in that the more things go to hell, Jimmy, and it looks like everything is falling apart in the collective West, economic level, energy level,
yes,
societal level. The reaction is going to be to try and consolidate power more. These types of speeches, this rhetoric, the enemy within, we're going to go after these guys and we're going to divide half the country, and they're your enemy. It's either MAGA or it's Putin or it's Xi Jinping or it's God knows what else. All of these enemies that are all around you. Well, we're going to have to go after them because we need to centralize more power to ourselves. So I think this is going to be the natural course of things. And I think we're going to see a lot of leaders across the entire collective West trying to pick out enemies and find excuses so that they can centralize more power to the government.
That's all this is about, is power. Again, they're not going to, and this is about the establishment, and there's a fear that they might lose their grip on power because of this outside person, Donald Trump and his followers. But they would feel that they felt exactly the same. In fact, even worse about Bernie Sanders and his followers. I've showed you that the Donnie Deutsch on MSNBC in front of a live camera admitted that he would vote for Donald Trump over Bernie Sanders. So that's what this is about. That's about anybody who's a threat to the establishment. They're going to make them. That's your enemy within. So we gotta hate other Americans, and that's all they have. And they've been doing this for a while. I'll do a little bit more of the speech.
We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack on democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it.
Then if that was true, why in the fuck would you be worried about it?
Huh.
If that was true, if far more Americans reject MAGA than reject you. Why would you give a shit? Because you know that you're going to lose if you have to run against somebody who's considered an outsider. That's what that is. Okay, here we go.
And folks,
Oh, don't be the last one to stop clapping.
What?
Don't be the last one to stop applauding for that.
American democracy. I believe America is at an inflection point.
Oh, yeah? With a demented president?
Moments that determine the
An
shape
inflection?
of everything that's to come after.
Jeez.
And now, America must choose to move forward or to move backwards. To build a future or obsess about the past.
Just
To be a nation of hope and unity and optimism. Or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice.
he fucking immediately does division after he says we got to choose hope and this, not division. Those fuckers did.
Oh.
They chose division. It's like, what do you?
Should I not reach out to them?
Immediately, he immediately does it.
They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow.
This guy lives in the light of truth. Joe Biden lives in the light of truth, unlike MAGA Republicans. If you want the truth, you go to old Joe. Graduated top of his class.
Of lies. But together we can choose a different path.
Together who? Together with who? You just said we're supposed to hate those people because they have made their choice and they want to undermine our democracy that elected you.
Oh, maybe he's talking to just the people seated there.
I think he's talking to just. So that's all they have. And that's why they, no matter if it's vaccines, whether it's January 6th, whether it's elections, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Syria, whether it's health, this is all they have is division. Remember when they were doing this guy who says he wants to bring the country together? This is what him and his party have been doing since fucking 2020. It's time to start firing unvaccinated people. Trump fans are overdue for a lesson in consequences.
All those black people that were all Trump fans that didn't want, okay.
Yeah. I think my son's crush is from an anti-vax family. Should I drive them apart? That's in Slate.
An anti-vax, what does drive them apart mean? Oh, the dog. I thought
The surest way to work up a crusade in favor of, this is from Aldous Huxley. The surest way to work up a crusade in favor of some good cause is to promise people they will have a chance at maltreating someone. To be able to destroy with good conscience, to be able to behave badly and call your bad behavior righteous indignation. This is the height of psychological luxury, the most delicious of moral treats. And that is what has happened since the beginning of COVID. That is what has happened since Donald Trump was elected. And that is what Joe Biden is doing right now. Getting you to feel morally righteous about hating and blaming your neighbor for the shit condition your life is in because of the oligarchy who did a controlled demolition of our economy, which benefited who? Them and flattened everyone else. Remember, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then it was 2 years to flatten the American worker. And they did it. And that's what, they don't want to talk about that. Joe Biden doesn't want to talk about that. The Democrats don't want to talk about that. And neither do the Republicans. What do they want to talk about? They want to talk about January 6th. They want to talk about other Americans are the threat to you, not the oligarchy that's been controlling everything and making your life miserable, but it's other regular people who feel like they got cheated out of an election, even though Joe Biden and everybody on his side has been screaming that they were cheated out of an election for fucking 6 straight years. So, let me bring it back in the host of the Duran and just give you guys a chance to go ahead and comment on this one more time if you'd like to.
Absolutely. I mean, division like that, can I just say it can be used both against the left and against the right. Now, in Britain, we have exactly the same kind of hysteria, exactly the kind of campaigns, the enemy within. only of course it was the left wing of the Labour Party when the Labour Party was led by Jeremy Corbyn, and it was exactly the same kind of rhetoric, the same kind of hysteria, the same kind of campaigns, the same kind of investigations. And we've had reports now coming out of the Labour Party about how the establishment, the political class which controls the Labour Party, which is part of the overall political class, they were actually working to ensure that the leader of the party that they were supposed to belong to, the Labour Party, actually would lose an election. I mean, we had whole investigations about this, and of course they're not talked about, but it doesn't matter whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right. If you're not part of the establishment consensus, you are a threat. And it isn't just Trumpians who need to be worried. It's everybody who dissents and who disagrees with what the oligarch class actually wants.
If you think that the FBI is only going to raid Donald Trump's closet, believe me, they'll do it to anybody who threatens the establishment. And the weird thing is, Donald Trump doesn't really threaten the establishment. It's just that he's the bad face for the establishment, right? It's much easier to sell vaccines with Joe Biden's face on them than it is Donald Trump for some reason. It's much easier to sell a nuclear war with Russia and China with Joe Biden's face on it than it is with Donald Trump's face on it. For whatever reason, Donald Trump's face is bad for the neoliberal brand. And that's all. Because when he legislated, Donald Trump, he legislated just like all of them. He didn't give you jobs. He didn't build a wall. He didn't give you everybody health care. He didn't end the wars and invest that money back here. What did he do? He gave fucking tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. That was his great achievement. Just like the rest of them. So why do they hate him? They hate him because he's bad face on the all. When Barack Obama was president, nobody knew we were bombing the shit out of Muslim countries until Trump banned them at the airport. The refugees from Barack Obama's bombing. Nobody knew Barack Obama was putting immigrant kids in cages until Trump did it. That's why they can't have Trump. You get it? He's a bad face. He grabs him by the pussy. They can't have this. They'd rather have a demented guy. Yes, go ahead.
No, with the travel ban, isn't it interesting how everyone went crazy with Trump's travel ban? Do you know that right now in Europe, they are imposing a type of travel ban on Russians so they can't travel into the EU?
I did not know.
No one's saying anything.
Yeah. No
one's saying anything.
Yeah. No one gives a shit. It's all virtue signaling.
Yeah.
But
the previous segment you had with Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, they're saying the same thing pretty much. They're saying we're going to do whatever we want. The people that vote us into office, they don't really matter. We're going to do what we want, when we want. And if you don't agree with what we do, then we're going to go after you.
That's 100%.
That's the message.
That's the message, and that's what's happening. And yes, so when I tell people that if it wasn't Trump, they would be saying this about Bernie Sanders, if Bernie Sanders was actually a threat, which he's not. But you actually had Jeremy Corbyn in the UK who actually was a threat, and they did this exact thing to him over there.
Exactly the same thing. And with I remember I lived through it all. I had to participate. I was right in the middle of all the swirl, all the hysteria, all the things that were said about Corbyn. And of course, it was effective. It worked to an extraordinary degree. It was successful. It made a lot of people believe many of the things that were said about Corbyn and about his movement, which, when you actually took a step back and looked at the shape up into any kind of evidence at all.
Wait, so you're saying he didn't love terrorism and wokeness?
No, I don't think he did love terrorism.
He didn't love terrorism. About wokeness, well,
maybe.
But that wasn't why they didn't like him. They didn't like him because he was a challenge to the political, social, and economic order, and also to the foreign policy. He was somebody who was consistently opposed the various wars, the interventionist wars. He was against Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, you name it, he opposed it. And of course, that is unacceptable. And of course, the military people, the intelligence community, the military industrial complex, they didn't like him for obvious reasons. And they have the same kind of power in Britain that they have in America, perhaps even more.
Come see us do stand-up comedy in Spokane, Tacoma, Virginia Beach, Richmond, Arlington, San Jose, Miami, West Palm Beach. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all tickets and become a premium member while you're there.